Okay. So good evening, everyone. I hope am I audible and you can also unmute yourself whenever it is required. So it is always my pleasure to have introduced to a wonderful platforms where all the faculty members, a pool of knowledge is gathered and where we can contribute each other, the opinions of each other. So before we start with today's topic, introducing you with the today's topic, as usual, my habit is to ask you, how is the Josh? And you can type that in the chat box. It is a very wrong question to ask the faculty because it is expected from the faculties that their Josh, their enthusiasm should be always high. So how is your Josh? Because right now you are not the faculties, you are the students. So how is your Josh? Yes, Dr. Jay Prakash is saying hi. Okay, and what about other people? How is the Josh? If the Josh is not high, the vibration, the energy will also be not high. So with that note, the Josh should be always high because, as I said, we are the educators and there is an expectations that is on our shoulders. Before we begin with today's session, I'm going to introduce you with what is the main objective of our FDP and how we are going to have the topics throughout the 6 days of this FDP. Today's session will be about what is the role of communication. And if we can understand that why and how and what of communication when we as an educator represents ourselves in the classroom communication, the way you represent yourself in your classroom, that makes a lot of difference. And then we will able to understand that why are you in this course, how this course is going to help you, and what will be the output, what will be the benefit, because this is a theory of golden circle which invites you also to tell about your roles, your responsibilities, and your objective, your purpose, because as Simon Sinek said that everything starts with why. So before we begin, before we start this journey, I would like to ask you your why are you in this course. So to know your answers, what we are going to do is I'm going to give you a link in your chat box. You click that link and there will be a quick survey. It will give me an idea as a trainer that what are your expectations and where do you stand in with respect to the communication skills, right? So let me give you that link in the chat box. You can just click that link and then the questions. So there are basically very few questions. First question will be, why are you in this course? So you just have to crisply summarize what is your why. There is something in your mind that has motivated you, fascinated you to join this course. So that is first question. There will be a question where you will have to rate yourself, your own communication style on the scale of 1 to 5. How do you rate your own communication style when it comes to classroom communication? The third is, how do you define communication? According to you, what is communication? Right. So let me give that link to you in chat box. Yes, the link is there. You can go to this link and start answering. So those who have just joined, don't worry, we have just begun with the session. And there is a link that is pasted in the chat box. You just go to that link. This link is specifically to know the survey, to know your expectations and what is your communication style. Because we are going to talk about communication, and that is one of the basic requirements of human being. So why are you in this course? And then we will discuss further. Okay, I think I have started receiving the answers. If you find any,
Madam,
yes, yes.
madam, I couldn't get questions. Where is that questions?
When you click that link, you will find the questions.
Oh,
I
okay.
have
Okay.
pasted the link again.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
So the first question says, why are you in this course? Let me share my screen so that I can also show you the questions. So this will be your first question. Why are you in this course? I am not right now showing you the results, that we will discuss later on. The second question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you rate your own communication style? Right? When you see yourself in your classroom, how do you rate your own communication style? Is it average, excellent, or you don't have any idea, or good, or you feel that you need to improve? And when I say communication, it is not only the language fluency, right? You know it better. That what do I mean by communication? I don't want to reveal it right now because that is the next question. How do you define communication? According to you, what is communication? So once I get the results from all of you, I'll share the results with you. So I request all of you to answer through that link so that we will have a collaborative platform where I can know the answers from all of you. We'll wait for 2 more minutes. And there are more than 20 participants in the group, but I guess there are only 4 answers. So if you are finding any difficulties, you can unmute yourself and share it with me for answering if the questions are not clear to you or anything that confuses you. Yes, Dipali ma'am, good evening. If there is a technical issue from your side, what you can do is you can just type, why are you in this course? That is the first question. You can type in the chat box as well. If you're not able to go to that link, later on we can collaborate all the answers. So first is, why are you in this course? The second is, if you have to rate yourself from 1 to 5 regarding your own communication style, how do you rate yourself? And the third question is, how do you define communication, the term communication? So when you write your answers, write it number wise. Number 1, why are you in this course? So as the Pali ma'am has said, I found it interesting. Then number 2 is, how do you rate your own communication style? And the third, how do you define one word? When I say the word communication, what comes to your mind? Okay, so let me go to the results now. Okay, there are only 5 participants who have been able to click through the link and have given their answers. Okay, not to worry. I think that there are remaining participants the questions are clear, you can type in the chat box. The more interaction you will have in the session, it will be more interesting for you, right? Because we are faculties and we like to speak more. But now I don't like to listen more. That is an attitude that we develop when we grow further. But this will be an opportunity for you where you will speak and listen more as well, right? So please speak more, interact more, participate more. That is the best way to enhance your own communication also, and to know more about from your side. So let me share my screen now, and to show you the results, that what are the answers of those 5 participants. Okay, so the first question, why are you in those? Why are you in this course? When you are in the journey of learning something, it is said that if your why is clear, everything in process will be very much clear. So for me, it is very important to know that why are you in this course, right? So as I can see, the first answer is to develop your knowledge. So kudos for that, that we still feel that yes, we will have to develop the knowledge to have overall idea about the overall impact of communication. Wonderful that you want to know that if I improve my communication, what impact? So I like this word impact, that if you are able to spread an impact in your own classroom, that would be wonderful as a faculty, as an educator. But I would like to enhance my communication environment experience. A very wonderful reason again. The next purpose says that to learn more about communication, because there are different ways of communication. Exactly. So tomorrow also we are going to talk about that, how many ways are there where we can express our thoughts, where we can express our ideas. Because I want to learn, that is the next one, because I want to learn effective ways to convey as well as to understand the young generation in a better way. Absolutely wonderful, because we are catering to the generation who are a very difficult generation, I would say. uh, uh, you maybe agree with me that nowadays the profession of mental health counselors are increasing day by day, and the main reason is the after COVID the scenario has suddenly changed. If I don't know whether you are teaching to which generation, but if you see, there is a quick gap when they have to come, when they have to talk about themselves, when they have to talk about their own career. There is a huge gap, and to fulfill this gap, to bridge this gap, as an educator, as a role model of them, how better and how effective we can channelize our own ways through effective pedagogies in the classroom by changing our own communication styles. Or there are many ways to answer this, right? So to learn the effective ways to convey as well as to understand, because this generation needs that somebody should be there to understand me. So very nicely written and a very fruitful purpose, I would say. So you want to understand their point of view, because in communication, what happens some of the time, we only like to listen what we want to listen, right? We don't want to listen what other person is saying. We only listen what we like to listen, and that creates the huge gaps in communication, and that same repeats in our own classrooms. So to avoid them, what could be the scenarios, what could be the styles, what could be the ways to bridge this gap? That will be the main highlight. Thank you very much. Let's go for the next question, where on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you rate your communication style? And there is one person who feels that excellent, and there are more two people who feels that average. I'm very happy that uh, nobody is there who feel that yes, I don't have any idea, right? Because you know your communication style, you know yourself. Okay. The next question, how do you define communication? And the cloud that is created here is, communication is all about transparency, outcome oriented. Okay, so communication should be, there should be an outcome, there should be a purpose. Physical communication, okay. Verbal communication, there is one answer, is emotional. There is lot to do with emotions when it comes to communication, to make a bridge, to make to fulfill this gap, and it's easy to understand. Okay, so this is how you define communication. So I would just stop share the screen now, and I'll just try to read if there are certain answers in the chat box as well. Yes, Dipali ma'am says that I found it interesting. Subject should be well understood to the person whom we communicate. Okay. So to summarize all the answers, I would say there is a strong why. And those who have not shared, there is also a strong why. Right? Why is that you want to learn? You want to update yourself. You want to improve something in you so that you can better implement that in your own classroom and you can see the impact. So the main objective, right? When I know your objective, it's very important from my side to share my objective. So it is very important to know the objective. As I said, the main objective of this FDP is to create the pool of knowledgeable faculties which you are already, but if we channelize our own communication in a way that itself makes our own classroom very effective as well as engaging, right? So if you have seen the brochure, it covers variety of topics, and today we are going to learn what is this communication and why is it required, and how we can channelize our own emotions in a way that it becomes very important, and what is the role. Communication is a basic necessity. We talk to each other, we interact to each other, but what is the role of educational setting, what is the exact role in the education environment, and how impactful it can be. So before we know further, before we know the role of communication, I would like to I would like to visit all of you some place, and I'm going to show you a picture of somebody. What comes to your mind? You just have to type that one word. What comes to your mind when you see this picture? Right? You don't have to elaborate it. You just have to be very honest. When you see this picture, what suddenly clicks to your mind? Right? Let me see that how you can communicate by seeing this particular picture. So let me share the picture with you. So the agenda is very clear that when you see this picture, what comes to your mind? This picture reminds you of what? Okay, I'll just open that picture and then I'll share the screen. So when we say the word communication, it's all about the words, the powerful words. Right? So I just want to see what are the variety of words you can use for this particular picture, which I'm going to share you. Okay, so I'll just share the picture with you. So this is the picture. So what comes, you don't have to elaborate the picture, that this picture is about what. You just have to ask yourself that when you see this picture, what clicks your mind? What is that one word that has appeared to your mind? And that you can type in the chat box. Okay, let me stop the screen share. And what are the answers? Civilization, evolution of human. Okay, evolution again. Variation. Okay, I like that word, variation, variety. Expressions of face. Yes, expressions again. Facial expressions. Okay. So basically, it was, the word is evolution, as you said, variety. Right? If you just dig down this particular image, this is the reality of the human beings earlier. Then what has suddenly, what is the difference, that what suddenly shifted, that right now, because of the evolution, we are the generation, we are called the Homo sapiens. So earlier, if we go back to that time where we were surrounded by animals, the species of human beings were so less, right? We were not having so much power. We only learned their language, right? There was no language also actually. We only learned, we only observed them, the animals. And there was a high instinct of animal instinct was so high, and because of that particular thing, what we learned is to kill and to eat, to hunt and to eat. That is the only thing we learned. Gradually, there were major revolutions happened. And one of them is still happening, that is the cognitive revolution. Now, because of this cognitive revolution, human beings started believing that the power is within me, right? I can rule the world. And that is exactly what is happening now. And the most important power that we have created is money, right? You can agree or disagree with me. The most important power that we have created, I'm saying created. So it is one of the best part the human beings has is we can tell stories. We can connect through stories. And that is how communication becomes an art. Right? Earlier there was no money. So when the evolution started, we started evolving. And those evolution becomes so strong when we realize that yes, there is a cognitive power, and that is the main important differentiator. So if I ask you that what differentiate you with a dog, you absolutely will say that yes, I can think, and a dog cannot think. I have emotions, but also they have also emotions. But that one different thing is that we can think beyond our own limits. And this thinking, the thoughts, that comes from our own emotions. And that is what we communicate in the world, from our own emotions and from our own thoughts. But if I show you the reality that has been changed after COVID, the scenario that is changing in your own classrooms, you might be saying that there are n number of challenges. And I believe that with this power of our own evolution, with the power of our own communication, we can change the environment of our own classroom, whether it is giving the feedback to the student or understanding the demands of the students, right? There is one session on transactional analysis. So if we are able to analyze the transaction that student is doing, transaction is conversation, we would be in that position to help that student, right? I'm using the word help because this generation demands that help from our side. They require, because everything is very much easily available for them. So they require people who can show them the path to go beyond the boundary. And we are the powerful Homo sapiens, and we have that power within us. So this is how communication also started evolving. So if I just go back to that picture, you talked about that there are expressions on the face. So that is another layer of this picture, that yes, communication is not only about the words, but it is also about the powerful gestures. So verbal and non-verbal communication, right, which we will discuss tomorrow, that how your facial expressions, how your animated face can also change some environment in your classroom. But today, let's discuss that if we feel that yes, the power is there, and how we have created, it's a very simple piece of paper, but we have created an importance that yes, this paper can rule in the world. And now you see the scenario has been completely changed, right? Nowadays the animal species are distinct and we are ruling the world. Earlier it was not the case. So how does this swift suddenly happen? So a very famous book called Sapiens, where it was discussed that we have the powerful style of communication. So communication is the basic human requirement. Without communication, we will be like a psychopath who talks to himself or herself. So we need people to listen. But again, there are, when it comes to communication, the next part, that is a negative term, miscommunication, that also follows. So how to avoid this miscommunication? Right, we like to speak, we feel that yes, the person is understanding me, but this understanding is lacking. So let's now know that what role can communication have in the classroom scenarios, in the educational setting. Before we go to the educational setting, I would go from the very foundational level, that what is communication, how can we, is it's not just an interaction, and which we do every day in our sessions, in our classrooms. But is it just a mere interaction, or something that you would like your students to remember forever? Right? So let me share the screen with you again, where we will discuss the role of effective communication. Okay, as you can see, there are two images given, one person who is listening and one person who is speaking. Right? So to a very foundational level, we believe that communication kya hai, right? It's just the speaker and the listener. But it's not only that. Speaker and the listener both should be able to share the common language. Right? If I use the fancy word for you, it would be both should be able to use the mindful language. Right? So that way the communication becomes effective. So let's answer these questions. How do we do it and why do we do it? How do we do it? Let's ask ourselves. How do we communicate with ourselves? And how do we communicate with others? The way we communicate with ourselves and the way we communicate with others, right? These others could be your students, your peers, your colleagues, your boss, anybody, or your family members even. How do you communicate? You don't have to answer, you just introspect. How do we communicate? How do we do it? And the next question is, why do we do it? Is it not okay not to communicate? Right? You would say no. Right? There is a very simple example, a very funny example. If you don't communicate, you will start communicating with your mind, with yourself. So there is nobody who would say that I don't communicate. So it is a basic human condition, basic human necessity. So it is a necessity like the necessity of water, necessity of oxygen. So how do we communicate? The way we communicate with ourselves, that decides, that builds our own personality. And the way we communicate with others also builds our personality. Now the question would be coming in your mind that how can we change the way we communicate with ourselves, the way we communicate with others? So there was a very prominent article by a very famous author, Devdutt Patnaik. He said that the belief system, the surrounding that you live in, that is your belief system, that builds your belief system. So the way you believe on certain ideas for yourself, either positive or negative, and the way you deliver the same to other people, either positive or negative, that becomes your belief. And the more stronger your belief system is, that is converted into, that is shown, that is reflected in your behavior. So if somebody is behaving with you very nicely, it means, if their communication is so positive, if their communication is so empathetic, it means that their belief system is like that. They are influenced, the belief system has influenced that behavior in them. And the way you behave with yourself and with others, that decides your actions, your business, either professional or personal. So it's very important to know that what goes into our belief system when it comes to communication. So how do we do it? Let's answer, how do we do it? And why do we do it? It is very clear. Now think about the next question. What do our words and actions say about us? Right? When we utter words are very powerful tool to express our emotions. But when we say certain words and when we have certain actions, do you think that they tell a little thing about us or multiple things about us? So the way we use the words or the way we channelize our own actions, they tell many things about us. So this is very important. How, why, and what. Now, if I say you that what is communication, right? So it's, many people have this tendency that communication is only about giving, right? So when you give, when you share your thoughts, feelings, ideas to other people so that you are clearly understood, right? This is communication. I have done my work. I have instructed my students that this is what you are supposed to do. So मैंने अपना काम कर लिया, right? I have shared everything which is required. But communication is not only that. Communication is taking also. It's give and take relationship. So it's also about taking the information that others are also giving you. Right? So you may have noticed in your own classroom, there are students not necessarily sitting on the last bench always, but they are not, they're occupied in some other activities. There is something in their eyes which they want to share, something bothering them which they want to share. Or I'm not going into two personal matters of them. If I just tell you that you were explaining them a topic, but their expressions are telling you that they are not clear. So it is not only about giving, but it is also simultaneously decoding the information that the students are also giving to you. So we will have examples in the upcoming session, so you will be better able to understand these, that what do I mean by giving and receiving the information. But today we are only understanding the foundational of what is the role communication can have in your own classroom. So this is about communication. Again, if we want to answer, it's a skill, right? It's not that, as if you have read the title of the FDP, it is art and science. So I agree that it is a skill that we learn, right? Somebody speaks so nicely, so politely, very excellently, efficiently. So we say that it is a skill, it's an art. But communication is not only an art, it's a skill which we, as you have rightly mentioned, the evolution. Communication is also that kind of evolution where we develop ourselves, where we grow in ourselves. So communication is a skill where we learn and develop throughout our lives. So through the experiences we notice, so we are the product of our own emotions, we are the product of the experiences that we face around us. Most people are born with this ability to talk, as we are very lucky in that case. The day we born, we start observing. The day we born, we start speaking and communicating and learning also. But what about those people who are not able to speak? They do have a language, right? If you can just correlate with the example of the movie, Rani Mukherjee's movie, where she was blind, Helen Keller's story. Right? She was blind, but she was able to speak through touch. She was able to speak through the emotion. So we learn these skills. Where do we learn the skills? From the people who are so closest to us. They are the influencers of us. So nowadays, if you agree with me that nowadays the sudden shift of this generation is having because of the huge demand of influencers. The Instagram influencers influences them a lot. So they learn, their behavior is shaped because of the environment they are into. So it is our responsibility that how we can show them the guidepost, the guiding light. I would say that this is how you can channelize your time, your emotions, your energy in productive way. So our personality, our own personality, look at yourself. Irrespective of the number of experience, the designation you have, your personality is also highly shaped by the way you communicate. Because when we communicate, when we utter a single word, right? Let's start with a single word. When we utter a single word, it is highly about our own emotions. Or when I normally say that bullshit, right? That has come from my own energy. And I am surrounded by, when I say the word bullshit for other people, it means that I am surrounded by the negative energy. In that way, the aura, the vibe will be created. So you might have observed that many people, if you just see that people, you will get that vibe, that negative vibe and the positive vibe. So how that vibe is created? It's because of this thing, that because their energy is, their thought process, their influences, their experiences are so negative. But there are people who have high optimism, high hopes, so positive. They are resilient enough not to give up in the life. Right? So that is how we communicate, the way we communicate, the way we see the experiences, the way we perceive the experiences. That way our own personality is shaped. So in short, I'll just stop the screen share. In short, it's all about communication is the way we perceive ourselves and the way we perceive others. So before we continue, I just want to know from your side, how do you, if I ask you, how do you perceive yourself? Just one line about you. How do you perceive yourself? What adjectives comes to your mind when you have to tell about yourself? How do you perceive yourself? What is your own perception for yourself? Right now, forget about others. Let's talk about yourself. How do you perceive yourself? Any one word that comes to your mind. Empathetic, okay? Energy personified. Okay, Vivek sir is saying energy personified. And Rishita ma'am is saying empathetic, strong and determined. Okay, what else? How do you perceive yourself? When you look yourself into the mirror, what do you see? A person with, you can complete the blanks. How do you see yourself? Okay, Dipali ma'am is saying confident. Yes. What about others? You don't like yourself to look into the mirror? Strong and determined, energy personified, confident, empathetic. There are only 4 answers. What about the others? Gentleman. Okay. What else? Gentleman. Jayaprakash sir is saying gentleman. Okay. So my only meaning, my only objective is when you look yourself, when you face yourself, the perception of yourself, the way you perceive yourself, the way you look at yourself, that creates your own energy. And that is the reason is reflected, same energy is reflected when we communicate in our class. Right? You might not be aware about this, but when we have the session, right, we have the knowledge about our content. We know everything. We know how to teach in class. But this is something, the way we communicate with ourselves, that makes a lot of difference. The way we think about our own selves, about our own needs, that completely changes the picture. But some of the time, because of the external chaos, external mess, right, we tend to give the remote control to other people, right? Though we feel that, yes, let's say, for example, somebody has typed in the chat box that when I see at myself, patience is one word that comes to your mind. But there are situations, there are times when we lost our patience, right? When we lose this, we lose our control. Exactly the same is happening in the sessions as well. But there are people like this who are having those garbages inside their brain. So when we meet some people who are not having the good vibes, let's say, the main reason is they are carrying that energy inside them. They have those experiences, those, they live in those kind of world only. Right. So before we continue, let me go back to the screen and I want to show you a video which will give you an idea that the influences, the atmosphere, the environment matters a lot. So this is a very true story of a feral child called Oksana Malaya. So let me play the video and then we will discuss about it.
Oksana Malaya began her life living.
You can just observe the way of communication. How does she communicate? Like the system, the principles, the everything that is made by our environment, and we just follow it. So Oksana Malaya is a feral child, and many people are researching on her. So she was abandoned by her own parents, and she's now, not now, but when the video was shooted, she was living her life with dogs, wild dogs. and she has only learned the language of wild dogs. Right, so let me continue with the video.
living with dogs. Rejected by her mother and father, she somehow survived for 6 years, living wild, before being taken into care. There are few cases of feral children who have been able to fully compensate for the neglect they suffered. Oksana is now 22, but her future still hangs in the balance. Have scientists learned enough from previous cases to rehabilitate her? For 6 years, Oksana Malaya spent her life living in a kennel with dogs. Totally abandoned by her mother and father, she was discovered behaving more like an animal than a human child. For 2 centuries, wild children have been the objects of fascinating study. Raised without love or social interaction, wild or feral children pose the question, what is it that makes us human? Oksana was born in November 1983.
When the baby girl was born, she weighed 5 pounds 11 ounces and didn't have any abnormalities.
Her parents were alcoholics.
So this is the current situation. Right now, she is living in a home for mentally handicapped people in Ukraine. So this proves that our influences, the environment matters a lot. But as I have said earlier, we cannot control the external environment every time. So that is why it becomes very important that how we communicate with ourselves. So if we don't have the influences of love and human interaction in our lives, obviously we learn to behave in very different ways. And that is what exactly happened when we try to understand and we are not able to understand the person. So something is going on in his or her life that is the reason that why he or she is behaving in a very different way. So before we start discussing the next slide about what role communication can have and why do we communicate actually. So before that, let me show you an image again and what comes to your mind when you see this image. Okay, so let me share the screen. Yes, so you just observe the image, and what do you observe in the image? You just have to type that in the chat box. What is that first thing that captures your attention when you look at this image? And if you have to describe this image, how would you describe it? It's a picture of what? If you just can write in one single statement or one word is also okay. What is coming to your mind? Okay, let me stop share. What are the answers? Environment pollution, garbage. What else? Dustbin. Yes. And noticed that dustbin was overflowing. Okay. Environment pollution, garbage, garbage, garbage again. Okay. I want to go back to the same image again, and I would like your attention to something. This is one of the, I would say, limitations of human brain. The human brain is accustomed, habituated to find the flaws. In the whole picture, nobody was able to see the beautiful green grass, the beautiful mountains, but everybody's attention got caught this dustbin because of this dustbin. So this is a human brain's flaw, I would say, that we are habituated. बचपन से सिखाया गया है that the blame is there and the mistake is there. So our brain is trying to identify the mistakes only. And in identifications of those mistakes, the good part is always eliminated. We were not able to notice the good part, right? So that is how when we have to communicate with somebody, it can be the students, it can be the peers, it can be your family members, we generally tend to assume, we generally tend to judge, and that creates the gap in communication. The main intention of showing you the garbage images, the special is the garbage is overflowing, and that overpowers in this image. So some of the time, the more attention you give to the mistakes of either it can be your mistakes or the other people's mistake, the garbage overflows, garbage overpowers. And what it plays a very crucial role in your own communication, that because of it is overpowering, you're not able to see the good part. You're not able to see the positive angle, right? So this can be vice versa. This can be for your own selves. The more you count your own mistakes, the more you criticize yourself, let's say, the more you will be able to eliminate the good part in you, right? You'll start blaming yourselves. You start doubting on your own capabilities. You'll start having your own insecurities, the fear. And the same is replicated when we see others. So that is the limitations of the human brain, that we are accustomed to see the flaws first and the good part is always ignored. And that is what not effective communication is all about. Especially when we are in the classrooms, there will be many mistakes happening. You try and introspect and answer, are we seeing, or are those mistakes that are happening in the class, students are doing it or you are doing it? Are we taking it positively, or are we just maximizing it? So the more you maximize the mistakes, the more you will start minimizing your good part. So you have n number of capabilities, but your focus would be only on blaming, only on identifying the mistakes. And once we have that responsibility and shoulder, that I am the leader of the class, I'm the teacher of the student, and how can she or he not focusing in my class? So that ego, that attitude, that comes in picture. You will understand the ego pattern when we discuss transactional analysis. So it is very much when I say, if you remember earlier, I used the word mindful communication. Right? I'm not saying that we will ignore the mistakes, because we are at that place where we have to evaluate the students' mistakes. But to give the feedback, the constructive feedback is also important. So make sure that when we communicate in our classroom, whether it is the classroom engagement, the pedagogy you use, or the feedback mechanism, every time you don't maximize the mistakes, that it overpowers the good qualities that that particular student is having. One more example I want to give you. I'll just share my screen again and I'll write something. Unmatched eyes highlights, green grass, yes, overflowing of garbages. Okay, so I think I didn't miss any answers. Yes, so let me share the screen with you again, and I'll just write something. Right? You just have to observe whatever I'm writing, and after my completion, you will just tell me that what did I do. Okay, there is a Word document. Are you able to see? If you can just confirm. Yes, you're able to see it, right? So I'm going to write something here. And whenever I ask you to interpret this, please be very honest. Yes, you can observe it one more time. So I have written down something on board and I'll stop the screen share now. What did you just observe? And as I have said earlier, please be honest with your answers. What did you just observe? Or when I was writing, what was your thought process? What were you thinking? What has captured your attention or anything that comes to your mind? Miscalculation, right? See the flaw of human mind.
The missing of the sign, just
Yeah.
like that you mentioned at star,
Hmm.
just that was missing, just a missing something
Okay.
at the
Okay. So your attention was caught that something is missing. Okay. So that star is the calculation was multiplication. So this was a table of two.
yes.
Your logic. Okay. Jayaprakash sir, if you can just elaborate it more. What did you notice in my logic? Different figure calculations. Yes. Professor JK is saying that 2 into 3. Okay. So that would be a mistake. See, nobody talked about the positive parts. There are some mistakes. Right. So I'll just go back to the same screen, same table. It's a table of two, which we learned in first or second standard. And Pradyuman sir was appreciating ma'am like in the beginning that she's that and this, and unko two ka table bhi nahi aata hai. That would be one of the thought. This is a mistake. So one mistake. Second mistake. Third mistake. So in the whole table, I have done 3 mistakes. And your focus, your attention was only on those mistakes. Nobody talked that ma'am has calculated out of 10, she were able to calculate 7. So if this was done by a first standard student, you would have said 7 are correct. But because we have judgmental, we are habituated to have judgmental approach, right? Uh, did I miss something? Somebody was telling, no? So intentionally, I was doing those mistakes, right? If you have noticed, my speed was also very slow, right? So something that has caught your attention that kitna speed bhi nahi hai, right? And she is calling herself a trainer, right? She should know this. The speed should be there, right? How slow she is writing. So when we have given attention to the mistakes in our life, whether it is our mistakes or the other people's mistake, automatically the mistakes will be highlighted, and the good part, the positive parts, will be diminished. And this is not our fault, right? I would say this is not our fault. This is how human brain works. We only observe the mistakes first, right? You can have an experiment with your spouse today. The ladies can have this experiment. Thoda namak zyada dal dena, and then see the reaction. So nobody will talk about the good parts, the positive parts that you have been involved into. But one mistake and you're finished. So this is what not an effective communication is all about, especially when we are dealing with the students, the mixed generation of the students who have their own concerns, who have their own limitations. So we are not solving them, we are just maximizing those mistakes. It is very important to highlight the mistakes, but there is a way for it. And this FDP will also talk about that what could be that way. So as my logic, my main objective of giving you this example was, this is how we are perceived. We judge people very easily. We quickly build a perception for the person that this could be, and how does this come? This is from our own perception. This is from our own surroundings. This is from our own value system. This is from our own belief system that we have been inculcating. So I was saying that this is not your mistake, right? This is the mistake that we have been learning from our surroundings, right? When you were just very small kid, when you fall down, right? Do you remember when you fall down? When you fall down, what did your mother say to you or your father say to you? If you remember, when you fell down at the age of 2, was it your mistake? Or did you know that this is called a mistake? So to fall down is not a mistake. But when you fell down, there was a positive boost of positivity provided to you. Can you tell me that? What did your father or mother tell you at that time? Don't worry. Right? Don't worry. See, it's not your fault. It's the floor's fault. So eventually our brain has learned that whenever in life, if it is my mistake, the fault is not mine. The fault is the others. And that is what we are conditioned for that. That in others also, we try to highlight the mistakes. We try to highlight the faults. And because of this, we are not able to generate that understanding between each other. And without understanding, the communication always becomes miscommunication. So this is what we need to change. Our own perceptions, our own thoughts, our own concepts. We need to rewire a lot, the own conditioning. And if we are able to change it, if we start changing, the change starts from within. So if we start changing those parameters, verbal and non-verbal, both can be improved as effectively, and the same will be delivered in the classroom. So this is the role of communication, the role of an impact, the role of not only maximizing the negative parts, but how to minimize those, showing that guide, showing that light, that how to minimize those mistakes so that you can learn, you can improve, you can grow. So that will be our overall agenda, and with the different techniques we will learn throughout these 6 days. So this is all from my side for today, and we will see tomorrow, same time. And please be more participative to have more engagement. This is what the current generation also demands. So the more you will be engaged in the classrooms, the more you will also evolve, right? So I'll